Hello and welcome to the Free Cheese episode 575. I'm your Joe Dix, joined by Matt Sellner.
Hello.
The Free Cheese is a weekly video game podcast about video games brought to you once a week by thefreecheese.com. Matt, it's time for the PlayStation 3's premier video game, LittleBigPlanet, to join the list. In less than an hour, LittleBigPlanet will be on the list. But before then, we've got a lot of ground to cover, including our time with the game, the history of the game, and everything in between. Before we get started, Matt, what is your favorite thing that you've ever created in a video game?
Probably gonna be something real dumb. I don't know. I've had a lot of fun making a character or two in MLB The Show.
Oh, yeah. God.
I've been inspired. I straight up made like Kenny Powers one time, or like a very loose representation of Kenny Powers.
Yeah.
I'm sure. See, my gut was to say Tony Hawk, but all I ended up doing was just making dumb parks that just had nothing but half pipes in them.
Well, my answer is Tony Hawk, but it's specifically, I'm probably thinking of Underground, but I would make my own deck graphics and stuff like that. And I feel like those are the things that stand out to me as like being able to design something like that feels like I'm stamping my own personality into the game. I was never good at the park creator stuff. Like you, it would be like a couple of half pipes because they're the easiest thing to take up space quickly and like check the box in your brain of like I'm making a park. And then it would be like a couple of things that I'd want to skate in real life, but that's not fun in a Tony Hawk game.
Yeah, nothing else has really come into mind. I did have fun making Polish Mark in Cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah, that was good. That was a good physical representation. I forget which hockey game it was, but I do remember making a Baltimore hockey team in a PS2 hockey game. I think it was
Hits.
It might have been Hits. It was like the Baltimore Ghosts, I think, because they had like some generic logos you could choose from. That sounds familiar. All of that era of like custom teams and stuff was so much fun to do. But it's then something that would be carried forward and shared to the internet thanks to the work of the folks over at Media Molecule. LittleBigPlanet's our game for the week, developed by Media Molecule, published by Sony Computer Entertainment, released on the PlayStation 3, October 27th, 2008. Back of the box it's 2 languages. We'll stick with English here. Fun shall overcome. Play, create, share. Specifically, play through a hefty collection of developer challenges, cooperatively or competitively. Create your own worlds, build your own levels, create obstacles, and even meanies. Share the fun and submit your levels for others to play, or just join your friends and play levels designed by LittleBigPlanet players around the world. So, Matt, we always start these episodes by asking why we picked LittleBigPlanet for the list in Season 12. I was the one who nominated LittleBigPlanet for the list in Season 12, and I'll say up front, I'm happy we're talking about LittleBigPlanet because I think it's an important video game for, I think, the history of games, my own personal gaming history, and I think it's important to add to the list, but it is definitely a different experience not being able to do the third part of play, create, and share. And in many ways, the play and create are hampered by the absence of online functionality within the game. However, I knew that going into this, and I still thought that on its own, the game would be worth, talking about and ranking and reviewing. A big reason that I put it on my list of games is that I went into Season 12 with the intention of representing a variety of genres and platforms. I made sure that every game I nominated this year for Season 12 was from a different platform. I didn't repeat platforms to the best of my knowledge. I also wanted to make sure that I highlighted something that made the PlayStation 3 unique. And I remember Little Big Planet was a reason why I bought a PS3. Today, it seems kind of obvious that an online game would allow users to create content and then share that content with others. But it really did feel kind of magical the way that Little Big Planet did it, and I think the way it was implemented. It was at a time when we were all very quickly becoming the global society that we are today. And it was games like Little Big Planet I felt that were kind of taking us there. So specific to the flow of games for this year's list, one of my two Wii Sports killers was Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, which we talked about earlier in the year. Next month, we're talking about Ib, a horror game that was made with RPG Maker. And my sort of like connective tissue that flowed through the Season 12 hierarchy was, hey, Pokemon sort of set a new standard or introduced, I should say, RPGs to a whole new audience, right? And Ib sort of felt like an evolution of what that audience would grow into, where they were people who were excited about RPGs and wanted to make their own, were doing that in things like RPG Maker. But RPG Maker was so kind of niche, and it was relegated to the PC, and distribution was a little bit different at that time. Now it's a lot easier to get your game in front of people, but back then it was a lot different. Something like Little Big Planet kind of goes from this very case specific. I mean, of course, it's on a platform which is in itself case specific, but this very case specific RPG Maker tool to, hey, here's this full game where you can also, everything you're playing, you can basically create yourself and more, and then share it right from the game. And it, I think, opened the door for like a whole new generation of creators that, I don't know, I'd be interested to see, like, are there people making games now that started by making stuff in Little Big Planet? I think we said the same thing when Little Big Planet 2 came out and when Dreams came out and all these other things. But it's funny, like when you go back and you read different things about Little Big Planet, some of the stuff that was being said in the lead up to its launch are very similar to like things you read now about like Roblox and Fortnite and stuff, where it's like, we think people are going to be able to sell costumes they make in Little Big Planet, and we're going to turn the PlayStation Network into eBay plus iTunes all in one thing. And it's like, okay, good for you. Are you all right? It didn't really happen, but so yeah. Did you have any objections to Little Big Planet when you first saw me add it to the list?
No objections in that regard. I was curious to see how this game holds up with only having, what's it, 30, if that, levels? Yeah. As opposed to the thousands that were available at one point.
Yeah.
But no, nothing. I agree with you though. It was, it still is an important game for the PlayStation. Created a mascot and got 2 sequels after that, one of which was on Vita.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit about its sequels and about some of the other games that it inspired as well, because it definitely did that. When did you first play, or I guess when did you first hear about Little Big Planet, and then when did you first play it?
I could not tell you when I first heard about it. It had to be in the lead up to its release and articles and stuff like that, because I'm paying attention, I would say, at this point when it's released. But I can probably tell you the exact day I started playing it. It may have been on, I don't know. Well, maybe I can't tell you the exact day. I think I knew when I was going to play it. And that day was, May 16th, 2011.
What's significant about May 16th, 2011?
Sony announced that 2 PlayStation 3 games and 2 PSP games will be offered for free from list of 4 or 5, respectively.
Yeah, there it is.
The old welcome back package from the PSN outage, for those that don't know.
Yeah. What a time. I remember seeing this at E3. 2007, I guess it was, when they showed it off, and it just looked so cool. And I remember thinking back then, this looks like something that Nintendo should have done. And it's funny because it turns out that Nintendo had been talking to Media Molecule about buying them, but Sony very quickly came in and was like, here you go, we're going to buy the studio, we're going to buy the rights to the game, we're going to make it exclusive for PS3, all that stuff. But I remember being really excited about it. And again, like when I bought a PS3, the reason I finally got a PS3 was in part to Little Big Planet. It was other things too, like Flower was a big thing for me where I was like, this is just, I've never seen a game or thought of a game like Flower before. Who thought, and you could only play it on PlayStation. At that time, it felt like experiences like that were just so unique to the PlayStation platform. And Sony was excited and eager to invest in things like that at that time. So it felt like the right place to be, and Little Big Planet was a part of that. When you did get it for free, did you like playing Little Big Planet? Did you have a good time with it?
I think what happened was I started to play it, and it was fine. And I didn't get into the community creation stuff. And I either had booted Infamous at that point, or booted Infamous after, and got sucked into Infamous more than Little Big Planet. I ended up never just coming back around to it.
So coming back to it now, how does it feel? Because it's a platformer. Like, but I should put that out there. Like, if you've never heard of Little Big Planet, I think it's a side-scrolling platformer that it's a 2.5D, right? Like it is a 2D platformer, but you're playing a 3D character in a 3D world that only moves on 2D planes. You can jump in and out of the foreground, background, but
there's like lanes in the 3D. Like it's fine. I wish we would have maybe played this during the, before the outage, unfortunately. Just to see what other creative and crazy levels are out there that would have been like fan favorites. I think that would have been a fun thing to play. Like, we each pick like 5 random ones, and then we each come together to play like the 5 most popular or whatever. There could have been some fun things to do there, but I like Sackboy, and I like the level design in this game, but I don't think I necessarily like playing this game that much.
Why specifically?
I don't think Sackboy is a very good character to control.
Okay, I agree. And I also, how much do you think is... Okay, so he's pretty floaty, right? I think that's like the most noticeable thing.
Yes.
The game itself is like very driven around the physics engine, and all the platforming you do is physics-based, which means also like you can use some of the environments to your advantage to sort of like, I don't know, just like propel yourself along a stage faster than you should because you're just riding along the physics. I think that definitely affects the feel of the game. I also could never then, and I didn't even think about it until playing it now in the lead up to this recording, but like, I forgot how much I dislike playing platformers with the left analog stick. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, also the PS3 left analog stick in particular just doesn't feel great for a platformer. I don't know.
This was the game that made me think I should buy a new controller, because I have that weird like grimy. It has that age. This was the first time I was like, man, I should maybe abandon that classic hot pink controller and look for just a black one that doesn't feel like crap,
sticky and But I'm with you. He's very floaty, Sackboy. In turn, I mean, do you think that makes him more approachable, or the game more approachable?
No, I think the level design, in a way, I think the clever idea is that they have the level design, and then it's that collectathon in me came out once I started seeing the stickers everywhere. All the bubbles and the things you can put the stickers on to unlock more bubbles, and you collect those bubbles, and you just keep going, and you see these bubbles over there. And I think the main game isn't that hard until probably the last 2 areas. But the bubbles, Joe, they're everywhere.
They really are. And like, you're incentivized for picking them up quickly too, right? Like the more you pick up in succession, the higher your multiplier goes and the higher your score goes. And like,
and the more opportunity to sticker like the things that unlock more of them too.
Exactly. I played a lot of this game when I first, like I went through and I 100%ed everything. There were a few stages where I did not like get the ace where you like don't die and get all the way through, but I'd collected everything. I had completed every stage, and like to the point where going through this for most of the game, I was unable to beat my old scores. And then all of a sudden there were some where I was like, I think because I wasn't super worried about collecting things or not dying, that maybe this time around I had a better time. So I was like able to lap some of my high scores, but it's just weird. Like I haven't touched this game in 13 years or 13 and a half years, but like it's still, it was a strange thing just seeing this like ghost of my former self, like sitting on this leaderboard, I should say. What about this? Do you like, other than Little Big Planet, do you like physics-based platforming, or did this remind you that it's something you would like to avoid moving forward?
I don't know. I think I'm indifferent because I think I'm struggling to think of a game that I like, but I have a feeling there's a game out there that I can't think of that I liked with physics-based platforming. And this just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth most recently. I think there's a place for it though. But if you're, again, this game's goal wasn't to set out to become like the world's best platformer. This game's goal was to, I think the main campaign is inspiring you in ways to make levels that become crazy and fun, and you can play with your, share amongst your friends.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the single player campaign is like a really great showcase of what you can do and what you can build, but it was never meant to be like the entire experience. Although granted, like for me, it was the entire experience because by the time I'd bought a PS3 and played this, Little Big Planet 2 was right around the corner, or like just releasing. So I kind of jumped from 1 to 2 very quickly, and 2 had a much more robust creativity suite.
I remember not specifically what, but I remember that was like a big point.
Because it was something that they added very specific to 2 that let you do a lot more video gamey type things. And you could build things that were not just platformers in 2. In this, do you think that it feels worse than other platformers?
Yes, absolutely.
On the whole?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Sonic's a better platformer.
Ooh, man. Matt just unzipped Sackboy, ripped out all that stuffing.
Yeah, I just, like, at least with Sonic, you have speed and some interesting, like, not to say this level design isn't interesting, but, like, the routes and how you jump off your speed leads you to different things, where the Chaos Emeralds are, as opposed to, like, the low path or whatever. I mean, this is just straightforward, and Sackboy is just running along, and I like the times where you're like, there's a section in Metropolis, or a couple of them where you're in a car, you're controlling it with the lever, kind of, the hot air balloon mission was kind of cool.
In the temples,
yeah, like
islands, I think, yeah.
There's some really cool stuff they do with the environment as Sackboy, but just straight up playing as Sackboy in some of the more difficult levels towards the end is not a good experience at all.
I think that's fair. Moving, running, jumping doesn't feel great. I do like, weirdly enough though, like where the jump is a little floaty and weird. I do like when you jump and you have to grab onto things to swing and things like that. That feels good. Grabbing any of the like rotating wheels and like riding them along is nice. But yeah, you're right. It's just that sort of like very specific, especially like there's a couple enemies that kind of move side to side. They have this throughout the game. It's not one stage in particular. Move side to side. They have a bubble on top of them you must jump on in order to kill them. but they also have spikes on left and right. And Sackboy is incredibly weak. Sackboy dies with one hit. There's some things he can bounce out, like fire you can kind of like interact with for more than one hit, but still it's pretty quick. But everything else, Sackboy just dies immediately. And with those, like, it's just like, even when you jump right, it feels like you've jumped wrong. It's never...
Those ones later, again, this is all like, the first few worlds is kind of happy-go-lucky. There's challenge in getting the bubbles, but like not really a ton of challenge beating, just, clearing to get to the next thing. But man, those later levels, like there's those sideways guys that have 3 on top, and they have like this rotating like spike in the middle between like 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 that rotates, and if you don't nail it perfect, I feel like it's almost impossible to not die, while getting 1 or 2 of those bubbles on that enemy.
Yeah, and the death. So basically, in the game, there's like a little portal or a door that Sackboy comes through that's got a white light around it, a white ring around the door. It's a circular shaped door. Every time you die, you kind of lose 1 life, and that's represented by like a third of a circle on that light.
Yeah.
Your final life is red circle. If you die, game over, restart the level. And it happens more than you think it would in certain stages in particular. For no reason, like... Technically, everything should just work fine. It should not be as difficult as it is. But
I will say that if you die, you do keep what you collected. So you kind of get back to where you were pretty quickly because you're not doing all the crazy
that's fair
stuff.
Yeah, you're not slowing down at all. Playing the tutorial, just to kind of jump right at the beginning, do you feel like it gave you a good introduction to the core mechanics of the game, introduce you to the world of Little Big Planet well?
Yeah. The world I think that's a loaded question because I don't think you realize the extent of what the level design can be. But yeah. I mean, the mechanics, you kind of get it because I mean, Sackboy does have a lot. I mean, it's kind of less than Mario in a way. Like Mario has some like the backflip. The like the 1, 2, 3 jump kind of thing. Yeah. Like Sackboy is a grab and smile, frown.
Yeah,
like shake you shake your controller with the 6-axis. Yeah.
Did you ever do? I don't expect you did it this time, but did you ever do it back in the day, where you plug in your PlayStation Eye and you wave to make Sackboy wave back at you?
Your boy would have a PlayStation Eye. Ooh, I did not have a PlayStation Eye. You
didn't have the PlayStation Move?
No, dude.
I gotta rewrite my Season 13 list now and put one of those Move games on it so that you can come over and play that and we rank.
Great. Didn't I just say last week I wasn't a believer in the Wii and you think I went out and got a PlayStation Move the next year?
Yeah. Okay. Only because the PlayStation Move, for me, was discounted at local retailers for very cheap. In fact, I think I still have one Move navigation controller in the box with a sticker on it that says $8. I got was it Killzone? Or SOCOM? It was one of those where they did they had the gun that you could, for the Move, like the big rifle looking thing. I bought 2 of those for like $15 a piece, or one was 12, one was 15, something like that. Yeah, I went all in, but only after it was all like heavily marked down. And I ended up having a good time. There were some fun light gun games, and playing some of those House of the Deads with those things were neat. But yeah, and I again, like, I do think that what Little Big Planet did with the Eye was interesting in ways, but not at all necessary. Yeah, so we have the introduction, as it's called, it's our introduction to the world. But what I really liked about it is you get Stephen Fry's narration, which he's excellent in this whole game. Just very like, I don't know. He's just a calm narrator. He like just, I don't know. He's got a great presence. I mean, anything I've ever seen him in acting, he's just seems like just a joyful fellow. So having him be the guy that kind of like guides you through this is great. But I really like the introduction because it walks you through not just the core of the game, but it also says, hey, here's who we are. And it has headshots of everybody at Media Molecule at the time making the game. And it's cool because most of those people aren't there anymore. And like so much of that team has changed. So much of what Media Molecule has changed. It was nice to kind of have this like little moment in time for all of them. Even if it just is exactly that. I don't, it is a moment in time that I don't think can be recaptured. Looking back through the worlds themselves, what was the first time or the first level where you did stop and say, oh, this is cool?
I think one of the first things that pops out was the car that I can think of immediately without looking through the levels here in regards to that question. I really did like the style of the wedding reception area, though.
Oh my gosh, I loved that. Yeah, the whole wedding area.
Or the whole wedding area, yeah. Yeah, I would say, like, as far as mechanically, though, definitely the car was, like, the first one where I was like, all right, this is kind of, there's some cool stuff here.
Yeah, I agree. In the wedding, I liked the darkness, because you kind of had to, like, guide the, what was it? It was like a little dog, right?
Yeah.
Through the darkness to light your way. That was really neat. I liked, I think you're right. I think the car was definitely like, oh, like that was a big shift, which is weird because it happened so late in the game, but it really was like one of those moments where, like, I think at that point you'd kind of like gotten used to what Little Big Planet was going to give you in terms of platforming and challenge. And then the car was just completely different than anything you'd seen before. You mentioned it earlier, but the balloon as well, like that whole bit where you're kind of guiding the balloon up through the level and everything was a lot of fun and different, weird. I liked any of the ones where, I guess, like the meerkat stuff pretty early on maybe might be the ones that I'm thinking of, but any of the ones where it was like you could really mess with the physics if you landed the right way and just get like kind of launched way far off was fun. Looking at the worlds themselves, were there any that stood out as your favorite?
I think I kind of said at the wedding, just aesthetically.
Yeah.
I think one of the better ones. I did like the what was the, like, was it the islands? I guess I'm looking at the level names here. The islands with the Japanese kind of backdrop to it. Yeah. I did like that one as well. Yeah, at least to look at.
I like the Metropolis a lot. That's the one when I think back to this game. It's the area I remember the most. Specifically, like, the song that plays in the construction site is, like, forever with me when I think of this game. Okay. And that, like, every time I go to New York, I think of that song, and I think of that, all those levels. It's very specific to me. Like, yeah, it stands out. Do you feel like the game got more difficult by the end, and was it platforming based or was it Sackboy challenge based?
It was both. I mean, I ended up not beating the game because I was so the level of death, or I would say, I guess the section of death was the multiple rolling part in the collector's lair. There is this part where it keeps rotating and rotating. You must fall through and you must do this platforming section. And, man, it's like it's not early on either. And that level, I would say that's probably the most challenging part of that level for sure, but it's not easy getting back to there either. And so,
yeah, and sometimes there's just bad checkpoints in some of these stages.
And so, that was the one I just after I think Death 5, I was done. I was done with it. And I was going to do the thing where I cooled off. Obviously, because I'm getting mad. Yeah, obviously, like I'm yelling at Sackboy, like having a temper tantrum. But yeah, I was like, all right, I'll cool off. I'll do the From Software thing and maybe Master. I just never came back to it. Never turned on my PlayStation 3 again.
It's because it doesn't get any better, right? Like it kind of is what it is. The only like push to finish it is to finish it. But
yeah, I was ready to move on. I was ready to move on to the next game too, because I know again. That's the other thing too, like podcast schedule. It was a little tighter, just for personal reasons or whatever. But like the next game, I was like really looking forward to as well. So that had nothing to do with it, or did nothing to help out the situation. So yeah, that was there. That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
First time I played this, I was much more patient with things because I wanted to unlock stuff so that I had the stickers and the things to use in creative mode. But now I had like no real incentive to play with creative mode. I opened it up during this run just to like get a feel for what it was, and I didn't really do much because it's like, what am I going to do with this thing? Literally nothing. I couldn't even like. I looked into this because I thought it'd be neat. This is like a little bit of outside of Little Big Planet, but the last episode that's going to go up at the end of this month for you listeners is a recapitulation of Matt and Mai's time playing through Halo Combat Evolved cooperatively in person. So I thought about it. If Matt's going to be here, why don't I figure out a way that we can put our own custom Little Big Planet levels on a flash drive and transfer them PS3 to PS3? You can't do it, or at least not that I could find easily. And that's it. Like, can't share it. There's not a lot of incentive to go deep down the hole. But I do, this time I feel like the pains of the game stood out a lot more, but hey, even that, you made it all the way to the very final world, right? Like, it's not like it was bad enough where you couldn't get through it.
No, again, it's not like it's a bad game. It's just, I don't like the way Sackboy controls, and it's just not my platform and control type.
Yeah. Do you think the story had a message, or what do you think the message of the game was? What did you take away from it from that perspective?
It had like that awe, like that wonder kind of like. Again, I took the single player mode as like the inspiration for what you can do with levels. Almost kind of like, I mean, I didn't play. I think I played stage 1, but I feel like that was like the gist of what Super Mario Maker tried to do with this main campaign. Like, look at the cool stuff you could do, and then you all go nuts with it. It seemed to have that bit of wonder and creativity and relaxation to it. There's a couple times where like something's chasing you, or there's a little bit more angst, but no, for the most part, it kind of was like a play your own pace. And the way the checkpoints are set up, usually is like platforming section, checkpoint. Platforming section, checkpoint. It's not a lot of times where there's like these weird ones. It seemed like too far away or something. I kind of took it as a more relaxed experience until it got hard. Yeah,
that's fair. How effective of a tool do you think the Poppet is?
The main menu, right? It's fine.
I like it. I think for me, like, overall, like, the game wanted to inspire the sense of, I think awe is a great word for it. I think it also, like, makes you think about the creativity in the world around you, in a way. It's what I kind of, like, walked away with. And I think the Poppet being this sort of, for me, like, I ended up, like, my review in this, I wrote about it a bit, and I think I said it best there, but the, like, how did I phrase it? essentially, like, for me, it was just like the game looks and feels more like, this is what I wrote, looks and feels more like a thing that you're holding or looking into rather than a video game. Like, obviously you're playing a video game, but I think the way they introduce like Sackboy in the pod and he's walking up to a controller to jump in and everything's handcrafted and all of that stuff, it gives it this feel like you're stepping into this world with Sackboy in a way that I don't think I've truly felt in a game in recent memory in that kind of regard. Maybe like an Astro's Playroom, or I guess recently an Astrobot did something similar like that. But yeah, I think Little Big Planet like does that really, really well. And I think the Pop It, to an extent, just kind of like it's definitely like a video game solution to giving a menu, but it also like fits with the character and it's cool.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like, it fits the aesthetic of what this game's going for.
Yeah, and I think it works really well as a menu system too. I think it's easy to navigate. And in a game like this, you can kind of easily jump in and out of it. Do you think Little Big Planet has a good replayability value?
For what we played, no. But again, servers online, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because again, you probably, and maybe this gets more with 2, because I think one of the things was the player count per level at the same time goes up in 2, I think, right?
You could definitely do 4 in 2. I think you could only do 2 in 1.
Okay, so like, this might incorporate more into 2 a little bit more, but you find a level that you like to play and you start to speed run it, and then you get the incentive to like, who can get the better score, can get the better time, like I could see that stuff happening. Or, when you say replayability, I maybe not a level a bunch of times, but you keep turning on Little Big Planet to see what else is out there. I think that's a big part of replayability in this game. Not necessarily the same level over and over, but what keeps you coming back to the game in some way.
Let's talk a little bit about user-generated content. I know we didn't get the opportunity to play it this time around, but this game was really big on obviously that, but also like your ability to customize Sackboy. Did you customize Sackboy at all?
A few times when I got a cool costume. I in the wedding became a skeleton boy quickly.
Yeah.
There were some other things that I did, or that I did along the way, but skeleton kind of stuck around for a bit. Dude, I remember, and I think I think you can still find this shit in the PSN, but PS3. But man, the amount of costumes you can buy for Sackboy in that store, it was almost like part of the drop each week. It was like, all right, here are your games, here are your demos, here's your video content, and then here's your Sackboy costumes for the week.
Did you have any?
I never bought any, no. I really never played it until prepping, to be fair.
I had a few. There were like some they would just give away. Like they gave away like a Santa one or something, or like a pumpkin one.
Yeah.
I think I bought like a superhero pack that had Marvel stuff.
I remember the superhero packs.
Yeah, I only did it because I really wanted Batman stuff. But they had a partnership with Marvel, not DC. And I was like, well, maybe if I buy the Marvel stuff, it'll signal, go get that partnership. And I think they eventually did in like 2 or maybe Vita or something. But in 1, it was just, I remember playing as Spider-Man a bit.
That's kind of wild. It took a while for DC, considering that DC Universe Online was exclusive to PS3. Well, not exclusive, but console exclusive.
I know, yeah. You know how stupid these things can be.
I know.
The other one I had was, I'm sorry. They did Metal Gear stuff, which I'm surprised didn't catch your attention, because it was actual like custom Metal Gear missions that were made with Snake, like or a Snake Sackboy costume. Yeah, they were neat, like stealth style things you had to do. Yeah, they were fun. But in addition to like those things, the big part of this was all of the user generated content. Do you think that Little Big Planet inspired people to, or inspired other games to encourage players to create and share? I don't know if I'm saying it the right way, but like, is this the one that kind of like made, how big of an impact do you think this had on that moving forward?
I would say it had an impact. I mean, PSN is a weird tool at this time, and this is before the outage as well. Like, Xbox Live came out, positioned itself strongly, and then here's this like PSN thing. I think it's not. This isn't really answering your question, but I think this made the PSN a somewhat serious tool because of the amount of content. And I think just people seeing like what these console online platforms could be, I think that starts to spark at least publishers to start thinking about how to use these new tools. And and when you do something correct, there's always going to be someone copying it. In some regard. I mean, look at our fallen friends. Our fallen friend already, our hero shooter that just came out not too long ago. It's already dead in the water and getting refunds. Yeah. That was like the 18th one of those in the last year. But when something good comes out, other people are going to copy it and do some things. So yeah, I think in a way, but I think it showcased more the power of what these things can, or when I say things, these console online.
Platform,
platform's the word I want to use there. Like what they can be, and that's where I think you got some of that growth.
Do you think, or can you think of any examples that stand out as like not clear imitations of this, but sort of like games that really leaned into that? I do think like something like Roblox wouldn't have. Well, I think actually Roblox might predate this in some way. I forget when that actually started, but there's a lot of user-generated content out there. Now it's, of course, it's outside of video games too, and all that. But yeah, it's become a whole marketplace.
I mean, the first thing I think of is Mario Maker,
which I think that's the best, most.
Oh, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying that's the only one I can really think of.
No. Everyone I think of sucks. So I'm happy you said Mario Maker, because I think that's a really positive example of putting it in the player's hands and letting them make cool stuff with it. Speaking of which, did you play, or do you remember any specific like user created levels from back then even, or anything that you remember being highlighted?
In what? In Little Big Planet? Or...
Little Big Planet.
No, not particularly.
The two I remember were obviously Mario 1-1 and playing like 1,000 of those, but like there was one that like rose up to the top of the like voting stuff, and it was, and then I remember one that was like, because remember this game came out in 2008, so it would have been right after The Dark Knight came out, and there was a Dark Knight themed level where like they obviously didn't have the Batman costume in the game, but they did all this stuff to sort of like make Sackboy and make other enemies sort of look Batman and Joker-esque and things like that, and they kind of told the story of the Dark Knight all through their own custom level. It was kind of neat. Do you feel like you are drawn to games like this where you have the ability to create, or is this not your...
Not necessarily my cup of tea. It's not that I'm opposed to playing them and seeing what's out there. It's just I don't know. I'm not like the creative type, which would then lend me to my struggles with the icebreaker question at the top of the episode.
Fair. Well, yeah, and I feel like, to your point at the top of the show, like, a game like this, I find it overwhelming at times when you literally can make anything that I just don't know what to make. and when I start making something, I'm never happy with what it is, and I spend too much time not doing stuff that, I don't know, I just get overwhelmed and move on to do something different. But it's always neat to see what people dedicate themselves to and create in this. Do you think, I think this is an obvious question, I'm just throwing you a softball here before we move into visuals and sound, but do you think your experience with the game today would have been better if you still had the ability to access user-created levels?
Yeah, probably. I mean, to what extent, I don't know, because LittleBigPlanet 2 was the one that introduced, like, different types of ways of playing. You know, it's still going to be the Sackboy platforming and stuff like that. There's still going to be the frustration baked in. You know, like I said, it becomes obvious how weird it is to use Sackboy at the end of the game, but it wasn't like I was enjoying jumping and all this other stuff early on either.
Yeah. Moving into visuals and sound, before we kind of put our closing thoughts on this and rank it, what do you think of the construction of the world, the visual design, the look of it, the way that everything's put together?
I actually really like this. It feels like it kind of has that like that
diorama.
Yeah, I was gonna say like this Paper Mario thing where it feels like flat and like I'm gonna walk that back some. It feels like you're on this like giant stage and you're like everything is like this props in theater amongst you, and you're just along for the ride in the, you know, as the props come at you and the story unfolds, and well, more so the level unfolds in front of you. I like that design choice. I think again that all thing, you know, using that all statement about the level design, but I think the characters look cool. I think the level construction, for the most part, looks cool. I think each world stands out as its own. Whether I remember specific parts of each individual level, I don't remember, but I remember like the basic aesthetic and things I liked and didn't like about those levels. I think visually and world building is very strong, and it's probably as strong as Suit, maybe.
I think so. Yeah, I think that this is its best foot. Is the way it looks, the way it's designed. I didn't put that into words or thought about it that way, but yeah, the way that it moves like a weird play, like theater props or something. Yeah. Feels like a Michel Gondry movie in that regard. I think the game in that sense, like, it's very inviting because it just feels like you're kind of there to hang out and watch the show rather than whatever. We like Sackboy. We're happy with Sackboy as a character.
I think Sackboy is an appropriate mascot.
How about, what's it called? Do you think, like, on his own, just little brown yarn fellow is good as he is, or is he made that much better because he's customizable?
I think customizing is a better thing, but you have to, like, all of his imagery is just him as the brown boy.
Yeah, and I think that always works well. Even
in Costume Quest, a thing you could dress, you know, so obvious to dress him up. He was just a brown boy all the time.
Yeah. I think he fits, too. There's been some spin-off games with Sackboy specific that I think still, he just works as Sackboy. How about music? Did you think the music was appropriate for the game? Did it fit each stage you were in?
Yeah, because I think it tied in that theme a bit, or not a bit. I think it helped tie in the theme, just period.
Yeah. Do you think that it kind of also, or did it feel as handcrafted as the visual look, or was it less so?
I'm an idiot when it comes to music, so I'm going to say less so, because I don't have the ear for specific things. But it's not a detriment. It's just, I think the level design is that good.
Yeah, the level design does really visually feel that way. This, like, doesn't feel quite like a Tom Waits song where he's just beating on old paint cans or something. Like, it's not that kind of handcrafted. But what do I know? They may have used old paint cans, and I'm not sure, but sound wise, I felt like everything always felt right in the world you were in. For me, I mentioned it before, but that one song that plays in the Metropolis just always with me. But there's another one too in the canyons, and I forget which part, but like as soon as it played, I was like snapped right back to where I first heard it. I forget which one. It's good. I don't know the words, but I found myself singing it anyway. Were there any memorable songs or stages with music that felt?
I can't remember one. Like I said, I can't think of something. Nah, I didn't make note of any of it either.
Well, we also talked. We mentioned Stephen Fry at the beginning as the narrator. Anything else on his narration through the game, or?
I think you nailed saying like it's that calming tone. It's that unique, like it's not just calming, but like you're along for this adventure, but it's also everything's going to be all right kind of tone. Yeah. I don't know. Using a lot of words to describe a dude's voice, but that's kind of
he is that though. He's just a pleasant, yeah. Well, we'll get ready to rank this, but in closing, what did you think of Little Big Planet when you first played it?
Again, oh god, it's been a few years. Obviously, I thought I probably back then I thought it was like a fine platformer. I just thought it was pretty easy for the main story at that point because I really did not play much of it. I know that, and so I probably just thought it was this fine mascot platformer that just a little different around the edges, but essentially was that.
Does that impression still maintain today? You still feel the same?
I don't enjoy the platforming, but it's still a mascot platformer.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But I think the game's unique. The game stands out enough where he's still like a valid like mascot, even if like playing. Yeah.
In the legacy of video game, or in the world of video games, what is this game's legacy?
I think we talked about it towards the beginning, where about the creation suite and sharing your levels and comparing it, comparing your scores to your friends' scores and all that good stuff. And just the amount of crazy customization, just within just the main story itself, let alone like PSN and whatever else you gather.
I guess beyond this, what about PlayStation's history? What's the impact of Little Big Planet on PlayStation's history?
I think it does help make the PSN feel legitimate compared to Xbox. But it's a mascot platform at the end of the day. It has a lot of bells and whistles around the side of it that make you feel unique, but if we're talking in terms of gameplay to gameplay, like I think Crash Bandicoot is a better mascot platformer. Like
sure.
But I think Sackboy and this world, even probably to an extent like the created level, like the user created content, like I think the levels and the way you go through them and what you can do in them and how they're designed, I think do just stand out compared to your traditional platformer, and that's what I guess makes it stand out to PlayStation's history in a way, compared to Spyro and Crash and characters of that nature from then.
Yeah. For me, I always think about the play, create, share part of it, and it's a shame that it's not online anymore, but I think about what it influenced in later games, like the play, create, share would be reimagined to race, create, share with Mod Nation Racers. And I still, maybe you'd make less Concords and more Mod Nation Racers. Like, I said it, like, I think almost every state of play when we do, like, little bingo card predictions amongst us and friends. But, like, the fast loading of the hard drive to me is like, there you go. That's the only thing that was ever wrong with Mod Nation Racers, is that load times were way too long. So give me the ability to create my own character, my own carts, my own tracks, and share all of that stuff with people and have it load instantaneously. You got yourself a million seller, buddy. It would do, if that Korean go-kart game can do as well as it does, Mod Nation Racers can do okay. Don't be afraid by Destruction All-Stars. Jim Ryan's gone. We can all move forward from this.
That game wasn't good. Like,
I know, but I'm saying don't let it be the thing that lingers over and makes you never want to do this again. Because I think I loved Mod Nation Racers Road Trip on Vita as well. And I think to an extent, like, they kind of pushed that into Little Big Planet karting, but Little Big Planet karting never felt quite right. To me, it sucks, but I think Little Big Planet for Vita is actually the definitive game, because at the time this was in between Little Big Planet 2 and 3's release, because 3 came out on PS3 and 4. But the one on Vita let you play not only the core campaign of Vita, which was really, really well done and did a lot of the like kind of pre-Tearaway-esque things or whatever with the touchpad, but it also let you play all of the user-generated content from 1 and 2 and Vita. It's really, really well done. But I think about that. I think about like what later became Dreams, and I don't know what happens with any of that stuff anymore, because I don't know.
Oh, Dreams! By the time it came out, that was just unfortunate timing, I think, on that one.
And if Dreams would have come out on PSVR 2. Anyway, what's your hope for the future of Little Big Planet?
I would like to see them come back to the well, just to see what is possible. I unfortunately know what I think that game turns into, and I don't necessarily want to see that. But if they had a cool idea, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Because they had that one Sackboy's Big Adventure or whatever on PS5, but I don't think it's quite a Little Big Planet game as much as it is a platformer, right?
Yeah, that's what I kind of... I would love, like, in terms of just, like, level design, and sure, I would love, like, gameplay tuners in terms of, like, speed and gravity and stuff like that, because you could probably make it a good platform if you wanted to with those I
feel like they
tuners.
added some of that in later games, but I don't remember.
Maybe, I've never played 2 or 3, but, yeah, like, those tuners, just to affect the gameplay some, I think would be ideal if it's not there already.
I agree. Maybe one day. Matt, it's time we rank this thing. Listeners, head on over to thefreecheese.com/thelist to check out all the games we've ranked so far. This is a tough one just because it's like, it's good. The promise of it is and was there, but in its current state, where does it stand? And where does it stand historically, et cetera, et cetera? I don't know. Historically, like, remember, this is what got me to buy a PS3. This is one of those things. I think it's a super important game. I think the core campaign is solid enough and a fun enough time to get through, collecting, practicing stickers. We're missing like 2/3 of the game by it being offline now, but I don't know how much that drags it down, weight-wise.
Yeah, this is tricky, because I think this game is, I'm not going to say completely different, but I think the experience is different enough.
Yeah.
So it's, how do you rank it? Do you rank it as it stands? Or do you rank it with a historical perspective? Because if we rank it as it stands, like, I can be somewhere probably in like the 70s. Like,
yeah.
But if we bring in some of that historical stuff,
I think let's go with kind of where it is right now. but maybe we can let some of the history of it and the impact that it's had, let it climb a bit if it feels right. We don't need to push it, but I guess coming into the episode, where did you have a gut feeling of like, this game is right here?
No, I'd have a gut feeling because I never really looked at the list until now, in perspective with the game. I don't know, looking at now, like I think this is better. I had more fun with this in Gravity Rush. I would say that.
I know that. Yeah, I know. I knew. How about Jet Grind?
See, yeah, like.
I like Jet
At the end of the day,
I think.
At the end of the day, I don't think I played enough Jet Grind. I think that was part of my problem with that game.
Metal Gear Acid?
I like Acid better.
Cleopatra
Fortune.
Fortune.
Weird. I think I got better at Cleopatra Fortune. I like it better. I don't like that. It's not like I don't like that game. I didn't score that game on because I'm not good at it.
No. It's yeah. I have no mouth and I must scream.
I think I like that better.
I'm just yeah. Costume Quest 2.
I think this is the first game here where I'm like, I think I maybe like LittleBigPlanet better.
Then there it is. That's the one.
Costume Quest 2 becomes so repetitive. That's that game's problem.
Yeah, this at least keeps, I think, the challenge.
Yes, it is. Like every level's different, aesthetically is different, and you're not in each world long either. There's like 4 levels max in each.
Yeah.
So now you get sick of seeing Japan or Metropolis or the Savannah or anything like that.
No, they go by really, really quickly. You can clear this campaign in a couple of hours. Like it's not.
Yeah, just don't let the bubbles distract you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm still, I'm high on it review score wise, despite sort of where we're at with it today. But yeah.
That's one of those weird reviews where I'm not high on gameplay, but everything else around it I am.
Yep, same.
I mentioned in my review, like, I think my last sentence is along the lines of, like, it wasn't for... Oh, yeah, I think there is fun to be had, but maybe it was when the servers were still aligned. So, like, I throw in that little sentence.
Same. My closing was... The game had a lot more to offer when the idea of play, create, share was a reality. I really loved what LittleBigPlanet created and think Media Molecule got a lot right in its first release. But, kind of...
We're running to more and more of that. Hey, there's been things I've not put on the list at this point because I don't know how it plays in.
Yeah, this I think is going to be the last thing I ever put on the list where I know the servers are offline. There is one that I'm adding to 13 that we've got to kind of hit the ground running as soon as I let you know what that game is, because otherwise I'm in deep fear that it's going to get yanked at any moment. I'm just hoping that we can. Yeah, we'll see.
Concord's dead, dude. Don't worry about it.
No, not again. Yeah. Well, anyway, more on that later on. Well, that's LittleBigPlanet. Next week we're coming back with South Park: The Fractured But Whole, which I'm looking forward to that episode. I had a lot of fun with that game this time around.
Me too.
It was a good
Me
time.
Too.
And then we close out our September with Halo Combat Evolved, and then it's just a solid October of horror video games. So come back, hang out with us. Until then, thanks, Matt. Thanks, listener, for listening. Bye.